the B&M Invert, the roller coaster model that quite literally turned the industry on its head, asking the question, what if the track actually ran above the train? Whether you're an enthusiast or just a casual amusement park visitor, inverts are inarguably one of the most popular, well-praised, and beloved coaster types of the last 30 years. First appearing in 1992 with Six Flags Great America's Batman the Ride, they are still being built to this day, with recent additions in Sweden and the first family version coming to Busch Gardens Tampa later this year. At the time of this video, there are currently 19 B&M Inverts in North America, and throughout my travels as an enthusiast, I've had the opportunity to ride all but one, that being Flight Deck at California's Great America. As you may know, I reviewed the 18 inverts that I have ridden in great detail individually, but the struggle in trying to rate B&M inverts, they're mostly all pretty dang good. The gap between the best inverts and the worst is, in my opinion, pretty small. So, here is my honest attempt to rank the inverts that I have ridden, starting with number 18 all the way through number 1. These will not necessarily be in order based on the scores that I originally gave them, because this is an ever-changing list. I could redo this video 3 months from now with a completely different order, and consequently thereafter. But alas, as of right now, the spring of 2024, here are my personal rankings of the B&M Inverts of North America. We're kicking this off with the quote, worst B&M invert, and I've got to be honest, this one was actually pretty easy for me to pick out. Batman the Ride at Six Flags over Texas was easily the most uncomfortable I've ever felt on the brake run of an invert. The Batman the Ride model, which, FYI, expect a lot of them on this list. The Batman the Ride model, if smooth and running swiftly, is a fantastic layout. Batman at Over Texas, though, was anything but. Big time shakiness on the ride that we got. Didn't find it nearly as fast as some of the other Batmans, and a headache was definitely starting to form on the brake run. For those hot Texas summers, when many will be on the dehydrated side, that's not what you want in a roller coaster. At the number 17 spot, let's talk about another Batman the Ride, and that's the one at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. Now, despite being in the second to last spot, we're already at the point where I can safely say it's not a bad roller coaster. For being just the third ever invert and over 30 years old, it still runs just fine. Fine, for me, being the key word here. As somebody that appreciates uniqueness in both layouts and sensations, the Batmans by nature are going to get a tick down just because there are so many clones of them. And the perfect description of the Great Adventure version is, it's just another Batman the Ride, having nothing, in my opinion, that truly separates it from the others. For number 16, we're taking a little bit of a break from the Batmans and heading to Kansas City for Patriot at Worlds of Fun. Now, if I were ranking these based on paint scheme alone, Patriot is without a doubt towards the top. An absolutely beautiful looking ride with that unique white stripe. However, the ride itself, and I truly hate using this word, it's very mid. Does nothing that special, forces are okay, no particular wow moments. Patriot exists. It has a valid place in Worlds of Fun's lineup, and any park that needs an invert, if they got Patriot, I would applaud that addition. Compared to most, though, Patriot just falls a bit short. Number 15, and yes, you better believe we're going back to another Batman the Ride. This one being the trailblazing, historic, ace landmark, the very first B&M invert, Batman at Six Flags Great America. In my opinion, from my memory anyway, the difference between this one and the one at Great Adventure is extremely minimal. While ride experience-wise, I'd once again say, it's just another Batman, overall it's not, because of that history. And it's the sole reason I boosted it a couple of spots up, because it 100% deserves to be recognized for paving the way for bigger, and let's face it, better inverts. Bear with me, guys, as we get through this slog of Batmans, but hey, at least this Batman model has a different name, and that would be Great White at SeaWorld San Antonio for the number 14 spot. The different name is appreciated, and it has a fun little paint scheme, and on my rides, The positives were just a bit more intense than the coasters already mentioned thus far. Very fun coaster, overall smooth. But again, at the end of the day, it's just another, do I need to say it again? Lucky number 13, and guess what all? It's Batman the Ride time. We've made it to the West Coast for the one at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Ranking the Batmans at this point is really just a matter of how smooth, how fast, and how strong the positive forces are. Magic Mountain's version is good in all three qualities. Better than the ones mentioned, but not as good, again, in my opinion, as the ones still to come. At number 12, and what maybe be my hottest take of the list, we have Afterburn at Carowinds. Now, I know some people that have Afterburn as one of their favorites, if not the favorite on their list. I honestly could see it if I personally had gotten an elite ride, in which I have not yet, despite riding it in both 2021 and 2023. It certainly flies through the layout. It has kick and power. Maybe it could just be a me thing, but I headbang a ton on Afterburn. I don't know if my body just doesn't vibe with the inversion placements, if I'm writing it wrong. I genuinely don't know. Similar feeling to when I hear people say that this is one of their favorites. Like I said, it's still a great ride, with some giddy up to it. And maybe of all the inverts on this list, it has the most potential for some redemption for me in the future. But as of now, it's just far from my favorite. Let's head to number 11, and hey, let's try not to say the Cape Crusaders name for this one, huh? It's the one at Six Flags St. Louis, which I found to be one of the pure smoothest versions of this model. We unfortunately only got one ride in this thing at night, and I got off thinking, yeah, that's probably in the top tier of all the rides, at least named after the Dark Knight. It wasn't the best in terms of forces, but still delivered a darn good ride. Time for some more potential controversy at number 10, as I have another very popular invert coming in at a relatively low spot, and that's a Raptor at Cedar Point. The major pro of this one for me is the drop, which just might be my favorite invert drop, period. Got some actual airtime on that thing, especially in the back. But similar to Afterburn, the layout just doesn't vibe with my body as much as some others. You may disagree with that and say the inversions are wonderfully paced. I would happen to respectfully say I am not of that opinion though. One of my least favorite Cobra rolls, an element that I already am not particularly a fan of, and just a ride that I get off feeling, I'm good with just one ride. But it's still very, very solid and has a great ending helix that should absolutely be applauded. But I also think Raptor suffers from being surrounded by such a legendary coaster lineup that it gets lost in the shuffle at Cedar Point to some. Like Afterburn though, there is absolutely room for a potential redemption ride one day. Just about at the halfway spot on this list, as coming in at number 9 is a coaster called Goliath at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. This coaster, yeah guys, it's that model again. This coaster's been through it, both with tragedy, that being Hurricane Katrina, and some miles traveled as it once was located in Japan. But Goliath is thriving at the front entrance of Fiesta, Texas, delivering some of the strongest positives that I've felt on any invert. The legs were absolute jelly towards the end of this layout for whatever reason. While maybe not the smoothness of the St. Louis version, it kicked butt in the forces department. Goliath is a solid coaster in an already great lineup at Fiesta. This ride, guys, should not be skipped. Getting to some of the good stuff all, as number 8 we go to the sweetest place on earth, Hershey Park, for Great Bear. This coaster's major strength is its uniqueness. It's unlike any other invert out there. Rather than starting with a drop, it starts with a helix. It has a fun, and yes, these can be fun, it has a fun straight track. And the setting in the hollow area of Hershey, not only over water, but flying by Super Duper Looper and Comet and Skyrush, it's visually so pleasing to both ride and to look at off-ride. No, from a pure ride experience, it's not the best of the best, but for a still solid coaster, adding the previously mentioned bonus points, to me, it deserves that number 8 spot on this list. For number 7, let's talk about the only non-American B&M invert on my list, and that's Vampire at La Ronde. Probably one of the least ridden inverts among enthusiasts, but the few that had said low-key, it's one of the best Batmans. And after our rides, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. Smooth, fast, great positives, and it flies through that layout. One of those coasters where you sit in the brake run and go, whoa, that was unexpected. Goliath is probably considered the best coaster at La Ronde, but if you said it's Vampire, which I initially did myself, I would not blame you in the slightest. Criminally underrated 1-2 punch up in Montreal with Vampire and Goliath. All right, it's time for the number 6 spot for a ride called... Wait, what's this one called again?
Talon! Talon at Dorney Park!
Right. Talon at Dorney Park. Someone once said that Talon has the perfect mix of positives and gracefulness and airtime. I don't exactly remember who said that, but, let's just say Talon may have some fans. And guys, I 100% agree with that statement. It has a wonderfully unique layout, an awesome looking color scheme, and yes, an actual decent airtime moment, only really noticeable in the back, but it is there. And also a wonderful helix towards the end. The front and back rows are honestly two different experiences, and both are very solid in their own ways. I don't think it's the best. Shh, don't tell a certain someone. But Talon at Dorney Park is a solid B&M invert. The top 5, baby. Let's keep this going with my number 5 B&M invert. And once again, perhaps controversially, it's Banshee at Kings Island, the world's longest invert at over 4,000 feet of track. It gets some complaints for being on the rough side, especially in the back, which is for sure true. That rattle cannot be ignored. But for me, unlike my complaints about Afterburn and Raptor, Banshee's inversions are beautifully placed, and this thing moves through them, especially in the front row. You definitely get those cheeks flapping. This thing is a beast, everyone. Well, at least a son of one anyway. No Cobra roll, which I personally love. Super unique layout. The best sign of any invert. That should definitely get a little bit of a mention. I love Banshee, guys. What can I say? I do get the complaints, but for me, it doesn't take away from what I believe is a truly excellent invert experience. Coming in at number 4, a ride that I've already discussed in one of my newer videos, and that's Silver Bullet at Knott's Berry Farm. No other invert, in my opinion, keeps getting better as it traverses through its layout more than Silver Bullet. Similar to Banshee, the inversions are paced well, with a Cobra roll that I actually didn't hate. Gorgeous setting over water and at the front entrance of the park, and that helix at the end. Chef's kiss. I think this is the most underrated invert in the country. And if you told me you had it over Ghost Rider, I'd maybe slightly disagree, but I also wouldn't give you a funny look and would kind of respect it. Silver Bullet, guys. Great invert. Get to Knott's Berry Farm. Check it out for yourself. We have made it to the top 3, and full disclosure, everyone, I actually flip-flopped my number 3 and my number 2 as I was editing this. I am putting Alpengeist from Busch Gardens Williamsburg at number 3. Visually, it's probably my number 1. Man, do I love looking at this thing. So freaking imposing with the 197-foot high drop. People forget this thing is almost a hyper. That snow and ice, white and light blue color scheme looks so beautiful, especially being surrounded by nothing but trees. And the ride itself, despite being 27 years old this year, runs like a dream. I've mentioned disliking Cobra rolls, not this one. I actually love this Cobra roll, my favorite of any roller coaster with that element. Sure, its flaw is maybe a slightly underwhelming second half, but then when you add that theme with some snow and going through a lodge, it still works for me. All hail Alpengeist, one of the most iconic and legendary inverts to ever be built. Let's hit number 2. And if you thought we were done with the Batmans, you thought wrong. One more to cover, and it's, in my opinion, the undisputed king of them all. Batman at Over Georgia. This ride is illegal, all. It should not be going as fast as it does. It should not be as intense as it is. And it's still insanely smooth. Smoothness, speed, intensity. How I judge these Batmans? Check, check, check. Maybe the best in all three categories. The fact a clone can still contend for the number one spot in a very large and solid coaster lineup at Over Georgia, a take that not too many would disagree with you on, tells you everything you need to know. Over Georgia Batman, everyone. Standing freaking ovation. This thing is wild. Finally, we have arrived to my personal favorite invert. And maybe this is a bit anticlimactic, because it's the invert that most have at this number one spot. And that's Mantu at Busch Gardens Tampa. I could have very well been a contrarian and try to go outside the box, but Mantu's just that good, all. It looks beautiful. Yeah, that new paint is growing on me. It pops. It sounds beautiful, and oh, does it ride beautiful. Especially with the best element this model has ever and probably will ever see, the Batwing. In the back, that is an element that makes enthusiasts go, let's freaking go, and begging for more. It'll be very hard to ever top the legendary status of Mantu for B&M Inverts, both for me and many, many others. So there you have it all, my first ever ranking video. I really hope you enjoyed it because, quite frankly, I personally adore ranking things, whether it's roller coasters to baseball stadiums, songs, movies, etc. I've always had fun with rankings. That being said, it's all for fun. They are not to be taken seriously or matter-of-factly, and I hope you don't either. But you can for sure expect plenty of ranking videos going forward. Thank you all again so much for watching. Please give that like, comment, and subscribe if you could kindly, and I will see all you wonderful people next time.